What's up, YouTube? Before we get into this video, there's two things that I wanted to get into. I've had a number of people reach out to me asking me if there's any websites that I play online poker. And honestly, it's just not something that I've really done probably in over 10 years. People are always asking me if I'd like to join their PPP club, whether there's something that I can, advise them to play on. And I just don't have enough information for that. However, I did come across a site called professionalrakeback.com, which has a load of information about which sites are the safest, about just legality of online play in general in the United States, as well as just like interesting articles currently on what's going on in the gambling industry. I've even found some strategy articles for Pot Limit Omaha, so I think it's an excellent website and a resource for all of these things. So please just check that site out, professionalrakeback.com. That's kind of the best place I can point you towards. Secondly, I've mentioned before on the vlog that DJF's podcast sessions is just my favorite. I think it just tells an excellent life story of someone that's been in the game forever. I've had a lot of people ask me about a number of t-shirts I've had, including the Straddle t-shirt. We have here the Degenerate Eye Test t-shirt. Check it out. PokerRags.us has all of the t-shirts, clothing, apparel, just a lot of really cool stuff, gambling attire. I would recommend checking that out as well as the podcast. I think it's just going to be the most entertaining thing that you can find outside of vlogs on YouTube. So those are the two things, and we're going to now jump into this vlog from my most recent session. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so another session went in late Thursday. Today is because I found out that there was a big PLO running. Turns out some of the guys I know have told the players from another casino to start coming on Thursdays to play the bigger PLO. So the guys who play down south in the bigger PLO have come up. So they had two full games of 5, 10, 20 PLO. A little bigger than I currently want to be playing. I was playing that previously, like 2 years ago. But now that that's not regularly running and not a game that I could regularly be in, I'm just trying to avoid the variance. Because the main game that I can only regularly play on a day-to-day basis is 3-5 no limit, I don't want to be playing like 2 days a month of some game that's probably playing 4 to 5 times larger than my regular game, and have that essentially dictate my yearly earnings, because obviously how I'm going to do in that game is going to essentially say and dictate how I'm going to do for the year. If I'm playing in that game for 10K when I'm regularly playing in a game where I'm buying it for 1K. If you remember, there was a vlog from not too long ago, well, actually maybe over a year ago now, where I'd gotten stuck 12K in that game. I ended up booking like an $8,500 loser or something like that. So the gameplay is really big and wild. So anyway, I went in because I found out that they started, that they had those games running, thought it was like worth checking out. And when I got there, they said they were going to start a third game for us. Because it was only going to be like 4 or 5 handed, we decided, why don't we just play the smaller PLO game? There were a couple people who wanted to play smaller, so we started a 2-3-5 PLO game, which is 1,000 cap, with still the option to go into the feeder for 5, 10, 20. Looking at the game, it didn't look particularly good in my opinion, so I probably wasn't going to be going to it no matter what. Basically, the short end of PLO was nothing really happened. My first 2 hands off the deck, I pick up like ace, king, queen, 10 double suited, and then 8, 9, 10 jack. Win like a little bit of a pot with one of them, lose the other one where I just lose $20. And then after that, like nothing really happened. I was essentially card dead for like 4 hours, swinging between like maybe up 200 and down 200, I think, the whole entire time. Eventually, our game broke. The must move the larger game had broken down, and so my options were like leave at like 3 in the morning, or go play 3-5 no limit, or the larger PLO. And still, again, the larger PLO just didn't look particularly appetizing in my opinion. I didn't think there looked like there was enough spots in the game, so I thought it was just gonna be like a high variance situation. So I jumped into the 3-5 game, essentially trying to get unstuck. Nothing really happened. Nothing was really going off for me until this one hand happened. I ended up moving to the left of like the one aggressive player in the game, partly because he was the one aggressive player in the game, and partly because just my seat was super card dead. Obviously, there's a lot of people who think like, it's not the seat, random variance, blah, blah, blah. But I am a believer in that, the variance tends to come in waves, where sometimes you'll have a seat that runs hot for 4 hours, and you have a seat that runs cold for 4 hours. And so I'm always willing to kind of change it up, see, you know, if something else could happen. So I moved to his direct left. I noticed that there's a hand where he looks to his left to see kind of what the action is, like to see if anyone's going to be calling, folding. You know, sometimes you'll see people are loading up folds. This is kind of why you should always be looking to your left. Sometimes you'll notice immediately if someone caps their cards, do they want to call? Are they interested? Are people folding behind you? So I get the feeling that he's not particularly strong. He opens to 20. I look down at king 9 of diamonds. I make it 65. He immediately comments. He's like, that's only the second time that's happened to me tonight, kind of saying that nobody's been 3-betting him. Now, to my immediate left, there's an older gentleman, and he goes in the tank. I'm just like, oh, come on, just fold here, man. Like, obviously, like I'm trying to either get it heads up in position or just win the pot outright. I don't really want this like older guy getting into a hand with me, which I assume is going to be like a fairly strong range of, you know, like maybe 10s plus. Anyway, he calls. The opener calls as well, obviously getting a good price. Flop comes king jack. I think king jack 6. I don't remember the undercard. It might have been king jack 6, king jack 5, something like that. With nary a diamond, so I don't have a flush backdoor flush draw. Goes check. In this spot, I'm leaning towards checking and down betting. I feel like sometimes here when I check, though, I'm putting in some awkward spots when on later streets somebody else is putting in a bunch of aggressive action and I'm looking fairly capped. I believe there's a flush draw on the flop, so it's likely like if I had jacks or kings, I'm going to be betting this board because there are draws. You know, there are some gut shots, some straight draws, some flush draws. So if I did flop a set, I'm likely to be betting. So if I check, I think I really just kind of cap my range, and I don't want to be locked in. Loss on turns and rivers now where like maybe the original opener now decides to barrel turn and barrel river because it looks like I'm going to have queens at best. So I decide to down bet 80, and now the older gentleman to my immediate left like immediately grabs like a stack of chips, sliding them over, and it looks like it might not even be enough to raise. At this casino, if you're $1 short, it's a string bet. So obviously he needs to make it 160. If he literally makes it 155, it's not enough to raise and it's just a call. The other player in the hand folds, they count it out, and it's 165, so it's just enough to be a raise. You know, now I'm starting to think like, oh, because I down bet, is he attacking me? And it's an old man, and truth be told, like he's not attacking me. He probably has ace king, maybe has jacks. So I'm just thinking a bit, like I fold, and he shows me king jack offsuit. Obviously, a bit frustrating because. Like, when I have king 9 of diamonds and you have king jack offsuit, like, he's not going to win this hand very often. Like, it's got to come exactly king high. I'm probably going to barrel, like, a decent amount of just, like, flops, ace high boards. Just, like, all boards, really, because I have the aggressive action. I'm likely to at least down bet, like, a wide variety of flops and win. So I think it's obviously pretty hard for him to win the hand here when he has king jack off and I have king 9 of diamonds in this 3-bet pot. Obviously, like 3 ways, like, yeah, I can lose it, but yeah. So anyway, flops top 2, so I lose that hand. It kind of goes to show you how not to just assume when some old man like cold calls your bet, he's gonna have 10s plus, because sometimes they just have the old king jack offsuit. Now another hand happens that I think is interesting for debate. It's not a hand that I played, but I think it's a really interesting one. Well, actually, it is one that I played, but not one that I get to the flop on. I open under the gun with 10-9 of clubs. A friend of mine who I discuss hands with thinks this is a fold. I hadn't played a hand in like literally an hour, which isn't necessarily an excuse to be changing what you're going to be opening in certain spots, but the game was playing fairly tight. I don't think I'm going to be getting attacked in this spot a lot. So anyway, I open a 20. There is a middle position caller. The button calls, and now the big blind makes it 220. He's playing like 5K, I think, in this 1K cap game, just like a ton. I think I'm playing like 1,200, 1,300, something like that. Obviously, just like a fold. The thought does cross my mind to make a little loose call and get spicy, but that's a very losing play to be calling this massive raise with suited connectors to try to outflop what I assume is as like ace king plus. Anyway, I fold. Middle position now makes it 535. What the heck? Button folds. When middle position makes it 535, I think this is just like always a big hand. I don't even think it's like ace king, because maybe it's ace king sometimes, but I just think it's like always a big hand that flatted, specifically kings and aces, probably. maybe it's queens. It just thinks that like aces or kings doesn't make it 220 out of the big blind. I personally believe, from what I've noticed in the past, that when the big blind, a 5K stack, makes it 220 here, being relatively deep against multiple opponents, I had 1,400. The middle position player had 1,600, I think. The button had 1,000. So I think he could be making it 220 here with, big hands like aces and kings. Situations where, he wants to make it look like he doesn't have that great of a hand in certain spots, right? Like who makes it 220 here with aces? And also make it expensive. Like he doesn't want to make it 80 out of position here in a spot where it's like, yeah, it's going to be obvious he has a big hand, and now we get to call and play profitably in position against him. Maybe he should then be making it 120 or something like that. But anyway, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he's making it 220 here with aces and kings, playing a deep stack poker. So now it's back on him, and he calls the 315 more or whatever it is. So immediately my thoughts are like, this is like aces versus kings. Maybe aces versus ace king, kings versus ace king, kings versus queens. Like that's the rather narrowly defined range that I think is here. I think big blind is trapping here sometimes with like aces and kings. I think if he has kings, there's really no point in putting in the 5-bet because that's kind of overplaying your hand. I would assume the middle position player is going to fold now once he makes it 500 or like 1,000 more if he has queens. It's pretty hard nowadays to get in like 300 big blinds with queens and be good. So I think he could be trapping here with aces and kings. The flop comes 4-5-6. The big blind checks, which I think is pretty standard in game flow. Now the middle position player bets 700, leaving himself with 300 or 320 or something like that. I think this is a really weird bet. I'm not really sure what he's doing here betting this large, because in theory he should be having aces or kings as played, maybe queens, but I don't really know what he's protecting against. It's going to be hard to get called by worse when he bets 700 here. Anyway, the big blind calls. My read continues here as like it's aces versus kings, maybe kings, queens, something like that. Turns a deuce, which I don't think changes much. Big blind checks. The guy goes all in for his like 315 or whatever. The big blind, I wasn't 100% sure, but he kind of like shakes his head, calls, and turns over 8-3 of spades. What? Yeah, that's right. He has a straight. Holy hell. Did not see that one coming. Obviously, this hand's just really goofy. Maybe from like a strategy perspective, there's not much to say. But what I think is interesting about this hand is, there are no absolutes. In my mind, this is ace versus kings, queens, whatever, big hands, like whatever. I would have never really ever thought that this guy in the big blind is making a 220 with 8-3 suited. And now calls a, 4-bet. With it. So yeah, pretty surprised. I don't really know what the guy in middle position has, but I assume it was better than 8-3 suited. So yeah, just kind of goes to show you that in certain spots people can just have like anything if they want to be gambling. It's don't make any overarching assumptions on your opponents that this is like exactly what they have and the only hands they can have, because sometimes they're just going to show up with any two cards. So that was a pretty gross one, obviously. And then the only other hand that I want to talk about is my last interesting hand of note. I opened under the gun to 20 with kings. It was fold. A player who had just seated, a young Asian kid, has a nice watch, looks smart, makes it 75, folds back to me. He is playing, I think, another like 550, something like that. So I think he bought in for like 600, something like that. At this point, whatever, he has aces, God bless him, I'm going broke. So the question is how to maximize in this specific spot. I think he could be 3-betting rather wide, right? If I 4-bet, I'm now going to kind of close out what hands he can continue with. What sizing can I really choose where he's not put to an all or nothing decision? I don't think there's many. Like, what can I make it? Like, click it back. That looks super strong. If I make it 200, he's only got 300 left. He's aware that it's pretty much an all-in decision for him. So if he has like 2 10s, 2 jacks, like he should be folding a lot. So I want to keep his range rather wide in this exact spot. I just flat. If it comes ace high, like yeah, sometimes maybe I lose like ace jack suited, where if I had ripped or whatever, then he's gonna fold. but I'm willing to take that gamble. I just call. The flop comes 2, 3, 4. I check, and he down bets to 50. I think this down bet's going to be fairly standard. That's a large down bet, 1/3 pot. I guess that's kind of standard, 1/3 pot. I think he's going to be doing this with like a lot of ace-x hands. Obviously, some of his pocket pairs like jacks plus. I would assume like 10s, jacks, queens benefit from betting a little bit larger because they don't want me to call with like ace-x, ace-king, hands that are going to have like a gut shot and 2 overs. But obviously, if he bets too large, then now he closes out what I can continue with. That being said, I think his range still consists of hands like ace-king, ace-queen suited, ace-jack suited, hands that are going to have an over and a gut shot. Also similar, I think he saw his pocket pairs here, like 10s plus. So I'm going to be check raising for value, and also to get calls from hands that I expect him to have. As I mentioned, the ace-x suiteds, the pocket pairs. I don't think his pocket pairs are going to be folding. It's going to look pretty wonky. Like if he has 10s or jacks, like is he just going to put me on queens here as played? I could be spazzing sometimes. So I'm not sure he's going to be able to fold like 10s or jacks. I make it 160. He calls. Turns the 8 of diamonds, bringing a flush draw. He's got 380-ish. I'm not 100% sure. Like 370 to 390, something like that. I bet 310, essentially putting him to an all-in decision. You might ask yourself, why am I not just betting it all? I don't want to get into specifics of that. It's kind of a personal thing. I'm not going to get into specifics of that. But I bet 310. He goes in the tank for a while, rips it in. If he has aces, God bless him. If he has ace-5 suited, God bless him, whatever. I call. River is a deuce or a 3, I think. I'm not exactly 100% sure. Pairs the board. And he turns over pocket 6s. So my kings are good. I ship that pot. I play for like another orbit or so. It's like 6 in the morning. Time for me to go. I'm going to be having to get the kids ready shortly. So we end up booking a $220 win after losing $60 in PLO, and then going to no limit and getting unstuck. Being a little bit swingy. Nothing too exciting. As far as that hand and his 6s, I don't really know what he's doing pre-flop. An under-the-gun open, 3-betting with 6s seems pretty spewy. I'm going to fold a lot if I have weaker hands. His hand plays fine in position, multi-way. Like he wants to try to flop a set. Yeah, like if we're heads up, then I guess he stands to win more often. But I just think this hand plays significantly better as just a call in middle position. And then afterwards, a bit of a cooler. Comes 2, 3, 4, about as good a flop as he can hope for with his overpair and a gutter. So I'm not really sure what he can do here. Maybe when I jam turn, he should just be folding for his 380. It's pretty hard for me to not have that hand be what am I really spazzing with? Anyway, so that's all for this session. Just kind of a grind. I'm pretty happy about how I played mostly. Didn't force much action. There was one hand where I had King 5 suited on the button, and I wanted to isolate an under-the-gun limp of a straddle pot. Just told myself, no, this isn't the spot. Don't be a sputard. The small blind opens instead. The flop ends up coming king. Yeah, I would have flopped quads. The small blind said he had a pocket pair, so maybe 3-bets me pre-flop. Maybe I don't even get to the flop anyway. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so I had some discipline. Didn't try to get too out of line. And booked a modest winner after 6 hours of play. Nothing too crazy, but that's the grind. That's how it's going to happen. I'm going to try to document more of my regular sessions so, we have more of a story to tell. Anyway, that's all. Just got home. Thanks for listening. Catch you guys later.